Mike Tyson has reportedly sued Jake Paul for canceling their upcoming fight. It was reported earlier that the anticipated clash didn't completely fade away, despite widespread disappointment over Tyson's ulcer flare-up. Instead, fans' hopes were deferred as the bout was rescheduled for November. However, Paul, aiming to maintain peak fitness in the upcoming months, found a formidable opponent in Mike Perry, who agreed to face him on the original July 20th schedule. Perry, a former UFC fighter, has seamlessly transitioned with an impressive 5-0 record in bare-knuckle boxing. Platinum is quite the wildcard, making this a potentially perilous bout for Paul. Perry's strategy? He's aiming for a knockout against Paul to derail the Tyson fight, as he candidly shared in an interview with Michael Bisping. He said, "I'm trying to ruin that whole thing for him. See if they offer it to me after I knock Jake out and be like, hey, do you want to fight Mike Tyson on Netflix? That's the real win here, if I can stop that, but I don't want it to hurt Mike's pockets either." Perry believes that regardless of who is involved in the bout with the 58-year-old, it is a lose-lose situation. He said, "I don't want to be an either, and I could go in there and move around with him, and if Mike can't knock me out, which I don't know, he might be able to hurt me pretty good, and then I'll be the bad guy if I do good against the old guy." However, it's evident that Perry only wanted to use the Paul fight as a pretext to blow up his plans for the future. That ought to make for a fun fight on July 20th. The current BKFC fighter vowed to exert relentless pressure on Paul, predicting that the problem child would be forced to kneel and plead for mercy in front of a packed arena. Consequently, Perry faces significant expectations. However, reflecting on a past sparring session between the two, it's hard not to question the former UFC fighter's confidence. If Paul sustains a serious injury against a formidable opponent like Perry, the Tyson event could be jeopardized, potentially costing Paul the largest payday of his career. Nonetheless, according to Paul's trainer, BJ Flores, a victory over Perry might be an easy win for Jake Paul. Perry and Jake sparred for 5 rounds prior to Paul's first bout against Tyron Woodley, according to BJ Flores. Mike is as tough as a nail, transitioning from UFC at that point, but Jake got the better of him every round clearly, and Mike took some big shots, said Flores, boasting of Paul's skills. So what does he expect from Paul versus Perry? Flores added, "I just don't know how he's going to be able to stand up to Jake with 10-ounce gloves and no headgear. I think if Mike Perry is aggressive, it's a very, very short night. I don't see how he stands there with Jake. I think it could be round 1, it could be round 2. Frankly, Flores' remarks cannot be entirely disregarded, because Mike Perry has not yet demonstrated excellent boxing. During his time in the UFC, Mike Perry didn't heavily depend on his boxing skills. Similar to many MMA athletes, he preferred a stance that enabled him to defend against takedowns and deliver effective kicks. Consequently, Perry often stayed on the outskirts of the action. This strategy also meant that he rarely closed the distance with his punches. This approach is evident in his losses to Jeff Neal and Donald Cerrone. In his BKFC bouts, Perry lacked precision in his punches. Without any head movement, he often got hit and bled. Despite this, Flores acknowledges Perry's resilience, describing him as tough as hell with impressive endurance. However, it remains uncertain if Perry can manage to defeat Jake Paul. Although Eddie Hearn isn't familiar with Mike Perry, he understands that the BKFC star will have a difficult night on July 20th when he faces Jake Paul. Perry has always been accustomed to facing skeptics. Despite having some unforgettable moments during his tenure in the UFC's welterweight division, he never achieved significant success, leaving the promotion in 2021 with a 7-8 record. It was unexpected that the conclusion of his UFC career would signal the start of his ascent in the world of combat sports. The realm of bare-knuckle boxing beckoned, and Perry answered by making his debut with BKFC in 2022. He triumphed over well-known Ultimate Fighter contestant Julian Lane, and then secured victories against Bellator standout Michael "Venom" Page, as well as former UFC champions Luke Rockhold and Eddie Alvarez. In his latest bout, Perry swiftly dispatched Thiago Alves, maintaining his winning streak and propelling him into a boxing match with the notorious Paul. During an appearance on the MMA Hour, Hearn was questioned about the upcoming fight. He expressed skepticism about Perry's chances, citing Paul's significant size advantage. Hearn mentioned that he had never seen Mike Perry fight and questioned if Perry was a welterweight or around 200 pounds. He asserted that Perry had absolutely no chance against Jake Paul.
Isn't he a welterweight or something?
Well, he fought in the UFC at 170, but in bare knuckle, he's fought at 185, and this is a cruiserweight fight.
And what's the fight at?
Cruiserweight.
200 pounds?
Yes.
He's got absolutely no chance. I mean,
but he's a bare knuckle champion. He's the face of bare knuckle. Come on. Have you seen this guy bare knuckle?
Ariel,
You've not.
Ariel, this is you told
Perry, known for competing in various weight divisions in BKFC, will move up to 200 pounds for his bout against Paul. In contrast, the problem child has a history of facing and defeating notably smaller adversaries, such as former UFC stars Nate Diaz, Tyron Woodley, and Ben Askren. Hearn made light of earlier forecasts gone wrong with Ariel Helwani, presenter of MMA Hour. Hearn remarked to Ariel that he had previously claimed Francis Ngannou would beat Anthony Joshua and advised him to stop getting overly enthusiastic about UFC fighters.
me Francis Ngannou was going to beat Anthony Joshua.
And I just said
Stop falling in love. Stop falling in love with your UFC fighters and let you know. But look, I don't know Mike Perry, but I know apparently he's a tough man. Obviously, he is a tough man.
Yeah.
So I wish him all the best. I actually bumped into Jake in Puerto Rico. It's quite funny.
Oh.
I was having dinner in the hotel that I was staying at. Is actually where he lives on the resort. And I was just having dinner, and I felt a tap on my shoulder, and I turned around. It was Jake.
Wow.
So
How'd that go?
Yeah, it was all right. He seemed quite pleasant. Just had a little chat. Said you're welcome to the show tomorrow, and that was it really.
So the hatchet's been buried.
However, Mike Perry is planning to play spoiler in a huge way when he gets his shot at Jake Paul in the ring. The duo's long-standing feud began during a sparring session when the YouTube sensation was a fledgling professional. A video shows Perry telling Paul that he kicked my ass, but Perry later asserted that the session was much more balanced, and he actually posed significant challenges to his opponent. Jake Paul enters the fight against Mike Perry as a slight favorite, bolstered by his victories over MMA champions in previous bouts. His significant size advantage and extensive experience in professional boxing further enhance his edge, contrasting sharply with Perry's background primarily in bare-knuckle fighting. But Perry has vowed to pummel the social media sensation, telling fans on his Overdogs podcast, "Maybe I'll still be passionate after I beat on Jake. I want to TKO him or knock him out or just pummel him so bad in the corner. I'll put so much pressure on him that he just has to take a knee and he's like, damn, what am I going to do? We'll keep putting it on him and put the hooks on him and then get on that microphone and be pissed off." Perry's transformation from a UFC journeyman to a prominent figure in combat sports has been a captivating journey. Departing the MMA promotion after 4 losses in 5 fights, the Michigan native has since remained undefeated, marking a remarkable turnaround in his career. Perry added, "Or I'll be tired in the 7th or 8th round and get that microphone and be like, hey man, thank you everybody for coming out. I think about it all the time. What am I going to say to the people after I win? That's what I think about all the time." In the realm of the BKFC ring, he's clinched impressive victories against notable names like Eddie Alvarez and Luke Rockhold. Now he's gearing up for a colossal boxing showdown against Paul, marking one of the year's most anticipated matches. I think it's well-deserved. I think I've earned this, and I think I deserve it, and I'm proud of that of myself. There's work to be done. I have a lot of work to do, push-ups and miles to run, and I've got to get this work in, he said during that same podcast. Perry said, "Lots of sparring rounds to do. I just take it a day at a time, and all glory to God. He gives me the strength to wake up every day and get stronger. Whatever that means, I forgot to ask Jake if he's a religious man, but that's okay. I don't want to have a reason to like him. I want to hurt him. I don't hate him, but my game plan right now is to put that pain on him." Yet, Perry's recent training footage has sparked worries rather than warnings to the problem child, leaving fans deeply divided about his prospects. What exactly triggered such apprehensions? In the video posted by Boxing Kingdom, viewers observed Perry standing firm and delivering a barrage of punches. Yet, what truly caught the eye was his lack of hip rotation, absence of a guard, and his tendency to leave his chin exposed while lowering his hands after each strike. The sight of these visuals struck fear into the hearts of fans, signaling potential disaster. If the BKFC star didn't rectify the situation soon, he might face a grim fate in the ring. Concerned fans echoed their apprehensions in the comment section. One fan pointed out the lack of technique in Perry's art of throwing punches, and so called him another arm puncher. Remarkably, the bare-knuckle boxer has only engaged in one professional bout, which he lost in 2015. The viewer confidently foresaw the fight's result, pointing to Jake Paul's back-to-back first-round knockout victories as evidence that another swift KO win was likely on the horizon. They declared, "Jake about to fold this guy, Sammy, another easy KO for Jake." Someone other, on the other hand, thought Perry was just pulling a practical joke. Why? To establish a psychological political foothold. They said, he is doing this on purpose. Paul's embellished resume, boasting a record of 9-1, came under scrutiny due to a cutting remark about the caliber of boxers he had encountered thus far. Many critics pointed out that most of these opponents were former UFC fighters past their prime. The comment read, "What did you expect? Paul choosing a risky opponent?" Another supporter rallied behind Perry, steadfast in their belief in the 32-year-old's abilities. They saw this move as potentially a cardiovascular challenge. Their enthusiasm grew as Perry transitioned to boxing, having achieved a flawless 5-0 record in BKFC. They announced, "Thank God, I have been waiting for this since Platinum first went to BKFC, Mike by Slaughter." But someone joked that Paul could fight in the UFC, bringing up memories of Perry's UFC history and his most recent training video. They poked fun and hilariously wrote, "Bro, a UFC fighter. Jake might as well fight in the UFC." A comment shed light on the grim reality of boxing and noted, "He looks awful, and I've just looked at his fighting record, and it is pretty average too. What a pointless fight this will be." While this fight could enhance Paul's skills, recent footage suggests it will also bolster his confidence. Nonetheless, Perry's track record as a remarkable fighter demands respect and cannot be overlooked. This fan said, "Perry admitted that Jake did well against him sparring years back. Perry is 5'10" and used to compete at welterweight. He also doesn't believe in defense. Jake's team is so strategic with his matchmaking it's gross. Still, rooting for Mike Perry." On the other hand, Joe Rogan and his crew have stepped up to drum up excitement for the upcoming bout on their podcast. Rogan and Brendan Schaub featured Perry prominently during their Fight Companion segment on the JRE YouTube channel. During the podcast, Rogan raised the topic of Perry's upcoming 8th-round clash with Paul in the cruiserweight division, emphasizing the disbelief some have in Mike Perry's potential to win the fight. To this, Schaub immediately jumped into the conversation, expressing his astonishment. He mentioned that in the comments, people often said things like, "Oh dude, you must think it's bare knuckle, this is boxing." Schaub responded to these comments by emphasizing that they didn't understand how tough Mike Perry really is.
In all the comments, like, "Oh dude, you must think it's bare knuckle, this is boxing." I'm like, oh, you don't know what a fucking dog Mike Perry is.
Yeah, he's a pit bull.
You need to do your goddamn research.
Mike
There's
Perry,
no quit.
He's a game-bred pit bull.
He's gonna get in your fucking face for all 8 of those rounds. Anyone was like, "Oh, this is a gimmick fight." I'm like, "You're a moron." But you're in a Mike Tyson fight?
Frustrated by the casual dismissal of the bout, the seasoned UFC fighter implored everyone to do your research. Despite Perry's formidable presence, he never clinched a major UFC title. It was in BKFC where he rose to fame, notably by besting Eddie Alvarez for the King of Violence crown. Nonetheless, Schaub forecasts Perry will bring the heat for all 8 rounds in his clash with Jake Paul. He even addressed people who thought the upcoming clash was a gimmick, bluntly stating that they were idiots. He pointed out the hypocrisy by asking if those same people were interested in the Mike Tyson fight. What's even more intriguing, though, is that Perry was thinking about taking on someone else.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, Mike Perry's dangerous. That's a super dangerous
No,
fight.
when is the Mike Tyson fight?
It's supposed to be in November. Supposed to be. But that is, who knows if it's ever going to happen. I mean, Mike has ulcers. He's a 58-year-old man
old
with
man
ulcers.
thing ever to get out of the fight.
Oh, Mike.
That's
Mike
like
Tyson.
a CEO problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He got on a plane.
Yeah, Mike Perry's fighting in July. It's July 20th.
Yeah.
During an interview on the MMA Hour, Perry disclosed that he had been contemplating an MMA showdown with Bellator fighter and IBJJF brown belt gold medalist Dylan Danis before the opportunity to fight Paul emerged. He said, "I was still looking at that Dylan Danis fight. That wasn't going to be a boxing match because we all saw how he performed in boxing. I was supposed to fight him after I beat up Jake Paul, but after I beat Jake Paul, let's be honest, I could just chill out for a bit." One of the worst boxing battles ever witnessed occurred when El Jefe faced Logan Paul in the previous year. Danis, of course, was defeated in the fight. Brendan Schwab's admiration for Mike Perry remains to be tested. It's noteworthy that Jake Paul has triumphed over UFC champions Tyron Woodley and Nate Diaz, adding weight to his impact beyond boxing. Meanwhile, KSI, longtime rival of Jake Paul, recently took to X to express his concerns about the problem child's upcoming bout against Mike Tyson. In light of alarming health updates concerning the former champion, the Brit voiced his wish for the fight to be called off. KSI has harbored a profound aversion towards Jake Paul for years. Since 2018, these digital stars have been embroiled in a fiery feud. Recently, KSI shared his candid views on the latest developments surrounding their eagerly awaited showdown. Tyson's upcoming bout with Jake Paul was delayed due to health concerns. Initially attributed to an ulcer flare-up, new rumors suggest he also faced complications from an internal blood clot. Tyson's team has yet to address the clot rumor, leaving the British YouTuber concerned about the former champion amidst swirling speculations on social media. If this is true, cancel the fight already, tweeted KSI. In case Tyson's condition worsens, the creator of Prime Hydration offers to cancel the event. After the announcement of the Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul fight, a wave of criticism flooded in. Concerns from fans escalated due to the significant age gap between the fighters, with worries intensifying over the health of the 57-year-old contender. Fans are expressing doubts about the fate of the Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul showdown. Following Tyson's recent health concerns, Netflix has decided to postpone the eagerly anticipated bout. It has been rescheduled for November. UFC President Dana White stood momentarily silent, visibly caught off guard by the news. When asked for his perspective on the bout during the bustling UFC 302 post-fight press conference, his usual eloquence momentarily escaped him. "Obviously, I know a lot about it," said White. He resisted the temptation to discuss the issue in a crowded venue. Dana appeared privy to details about Tyson's health, yet chose to remain tight-lipped. White said, "For the first time probably ever in my life, I have no comment on something." When the questions about Tyson were raised, the UFC president lost all words. In a surprising disclosure, he mentioned that the ex-champion strongly disapproves of Dana White discussing the Jake Paul fight in public. Given their apparent close friendship, the UFC president appears genuinely concerned about Tyson's well-being. Although a new date has been set, Chris Mannix of Sports Illustrated has reported that there are worries the bout won't take place at all. Mannix outlined the numerous problems he believes are developing behind the scenes when appearing on The Rich Eisen Show. He said, "There is genuine concern from people that are also on the card. I mean, there are another number of fights that are on the card about this specific card moving forward. They're saying it's a minor ulcer issue, but I don't think anything's minor at that stage of your life, especially when it comes to putting yourself in the proper shape to fight a professional boxing match." He also asserted that leading up to the postponement of the fight, he had been shadowing Tyson during his time in New York, hoping to have a conversation with the former heavyweight champion. However, he was consistently informed that Tyson was in intensive training mode. He added, "There is some concern among people involved in the fight that the Paul-Tyson fight might not go through at all, and some of the fighters on this card might be looking for lifeboats to appear on other cards going forward. I don't think it's completely off. It's certainly not out of the question, but again, there are people involved expressing skepticism that this specific fight is going to move forward." Similarly, legendary MMA world champion Demetrius Johnson said that the postponement of the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson fight should be made permanent. Johnson, hailed as one of UFC's most decorated world champions, holds a firm belief that rescheduling the bout isn't the best course of action. Rather, he suggests Paul should tackle another prominent opponent in a safer matchup. This recommendation contrasts with Netflix's strong push into boxing, marking their inaugural venture into the sport. Johnson has dedicated ample airtime on his thriving Mighty YouTube channel, dissecting Paul's career, meticulously covering this bout. However, during a recent segment on the MMA Hour, hosted by Ariel Helwani, he passionately urged Netflix to reconsider airing the Tyson comeback fight. Johnson explained, "Mike Tyson is 58 years old. I don't know what his health history is. I think the biggest thing is you have someone who is 58 years old trying to push his body to the absolute limit, moving, and I don't know if he's sparring or anything like that." Johnson expressed his admiration for Jake Paul and his desire to see him fight. He noted that there are many boxers Jake Paul could face to build his record. While he understood the appeal of Mike Tyson's big name, Johnson felt that they should not revisit the idea of fighting Tyson. Instead of anticipating a postponed match between Paul and Tyson, Johnson prefers to witness the clash between the social media sensation and his formidable adversary KSI. He said, "There's plenty of guys out there that Jake Paul can fight. KSI is one of them. He could even fight T-Wood again. He could fight Mike Perry, Jorge Masvidal, Anthony Pettis. There's so many guys." Johnson added that there are boxers younger than Mike Tyson, but still older than Jake Paul whom Jake could fight, and these opponents also have big names. However, he believed that Jake fighting Mike Tyson, who is 58, wasn't a good idea because he didn't want to see Mike get hurt. He emphasized that this was just his personal opinion and had nothing against either Jake or Mike. Johnson said, "There's just a reason for him fighting a 58-year-old. I'm sure Eddie Hearn could find someone for Jake Paul to fight. This is the stupidest f***ing thing that's happening right now." Tyson adamantly declared feeling 100% following the leaked flight incident, but doctors advised him to pause his training for the upcoming comeback bout. Consequently, a new date has been scheduled. A press release from the promoters read, "During a follow-up consultation on Thursday with medical professionals on his recent ulcer flare-up, the recommendation is for Mike Tyson to do minimal to light training over the next few weeks and then return to full training with no limitations." Paul replied by saying, "I fully support postponing the event so Mike Tyson has no excuses come fight night. My fans know I don't want to face Iron Mike at anything but his best, but let there be no mistake. When he steps into the ring with me, I will be ready to claim my W with a sensational finish. Paul versus Tyson will be one for the ages, and I promise to bring my best for this once-in-a-lifetime matchup." In another twist, Jake Paul recently acknowledged that Mike Tyson's withdrawal may mean that their fight never takes place. Paul recently provided insights into the fight in an interview with the New York Post. "If Tyson wants it, I'm down. The keys are in his hands. It would be such an honor to step in there with him." Mike Tyson is the one who wanted it to be a professional fight. He's saying he's fine despite the problem. He's saying he's ready, and all of these things. We're not Mike Tyson's dad. We're not his boss. If Mike Tyson wants the fight, it would be my honor, and I'm down to do it. Jake added that Mike Tyson is ready to go and just needed a few weeks to get back into training. He emphasized that everyone involved is hoping and praying for Mike's health and well-being, which is the top priority. Acknowledging Tyson's stature in the sport, Jake noted his lethal knockout power and extensive experience. He predicted that regardless of the outcome, the fight would be intense and likely a brawl. Paul is on the hunt for his milestone 10th professional victory as he prepares to face Perry next month. Since departing from the MMA scene, the former UFC standout has carved out a reputation in the bare-knuckle fighting championship. He recently ignited speculation about a potential showdown with Conor McGregor, following their intense ring encounter last year. However, seeing Jake's recent tactics, Tyson feels that he is deliberately trying to cancel their bout, and some rumors suggest that Tyson may sue Paul if it happens. Moreover, Paul has acknowledged that fighting Perry will put his plans to challenge Tyson in jeopardy. He added, "I think I am crazy for this. I definitely am, because I don't think anyone would take the risk in this position, but that's just what makes me different. I'm not slowing down for anyone, and I want to stay active in the gym." Make sure to check out some of our other videos on the screen if you enjoyed this one.